The janitor walked in, and the entire room froze. No one expected a man with worn-out shoes, a faded ID card, and a mop in his hand to be the one who would shatter months of failure. But when he spoke softly, almost shyly, every executive leaned in closer, sensing something they'd all forgotten. Sometimes the answer comes from the most unexpected place. And if you stay with this story till the end, you'll understand why his one simple sentence didn't just solve a billion-dollar problem, it changed every life in that room forever. The sun hadn't even risen when Ethan arrived at the towering glass building, Technova, one of the most powerful companies in the world. He walked in through the side entrance, the one the important people would never notice, carrying a lunchbox wrapped carefully in foil. He always arrived before everyone, long before the chaos, long before anyone needed anything. The silence helped him think, though no one knew he did. To them, he was invisible. Just the janitor. But today was different. Today, the entire building was trembling with tension. It had been 11 months since Technova had begun working on Project Ether, their most ambitious invention, designed to revolutionize global communication. Investors were running out of patience, the CEO was out of excuses, and the team of 43 engineers hadn't slept properly in weeks. The problem, a single malfunction in the core system that no one could find. $1 billion already burned. Another billion at risk. Ethan knew none of the technical details. At least, that's what everyone assumed. He quietly pushed his cleaning cart past the meeting room where the executives argued. Through the glass, he could see shoulders slumped, tempers flaring, one woman burying her face in her hands. He paused, not to eavesdrop, but because he felt something he couldn't explain, like he was watching people drowning in front of him. He moved on. He had a floor to mop before sunrise. Later, as the engineers shuffled into the cafeteria, Ethan overheard pieces of their frustration. It's over. We're done. Months of work for nothing. Why doesn't anything make sense? He kept wiping tables, but each sentence punched a hole in his heart. He knew what it felt like to fail. He knew the weight of trying to be enough in a world built to overlook you. That afternoon, while cleaning the research lab hallway, he saw something on the whiteboard through a cracked open door, lines of code, sketches, impossible equations. Most people would see chaos. Ethan saw patterns. He'd always been good at patterns. Numbers were the one thing in life that had ever made sense to him. Before everything fell apart, he dreamed of being an engineer. But fate had another plan, one that forced him to take whatever job he could get to support his mother's medical bills. He looked at the board for a few seconds, then quietly walked away. But that image stayed in his mind the entire night. When the building emptied, Ethan returned to the hallway. He stood in front of the whiteboard again, staring at the repeated cycle, the faulty sequence. It was right there, clear as day. A simple oversight the team hadn't noticed because they were too exhausted, too pressured, too close to the problem to see it objectively. Ethan didn't dare touch anything. He just whispered to himself. You guys connected the loop backwards. He left at dawn, feeling a strange ache in his chest. Should he tell someone? Would they laugh? Would he lose his job for meddling? He pushed the thought aside. But fate didn't. The next morning, while cleaning the boardroom, he heard the executives arguing louder than ever. The CEO slammed his fist on the table. We are out of time. If we don't fix this by tonight, everything collapses. Ethan's heart raced. He wasn't supposed to speak. He wasn't supposed to know anything. He wasn't supposed to change anything. But he stepped forward anyway. Sir, he said softly. I think I know what's wrong. The room went silent. 47 eyes turned to the man they barely noticed existed. Someone chuckled under their breath. Someone else muttered, not now. But the CEO didn't laugh. He looked desperate. What do you mean? He asked. Ethan swallowed hard. I think you connected the loop backwards. Shock spread around the room. He shouldn't have said anything. He wanted to run. But the CEO stood up slowly, walked toward him, and asked, show me. And that's where everything began to change. Ethan stood inside the research lab for the first time, surrounded by blinking panels, holographic displays, and machines worth more money than he'd ever see in his life. His hands trembled, not because he doubted what he saw, but because this felt like stepping into a life he once dreamed of but was forced to abandon. The engineers watched him with disbelief, annoyance, even curiosity. Ethan pointed to the core diagram on the whiteboard, the one he'd memorized yesterday without meaning to. "Here," he said, tapping the sequence lightly. "This loop is feeding the signal back into itself before the stabilization cycle. It creates a self-interrupting error. You've been trying to fix the outcome, but the cause is right here." A young engineer stepped forward, offended. "We've run over 1,000 tests. If the loop was wrong, we would have seen it." Ethan nodded. "You would have if the interference wasn't canceling itself at the same exact moment the test cycle resets. It looks stable, until it doesn't." Silence. Another engineer quickly typed something into the system. Within seconds, the entire model on the main screen flickered, then aligned perfectly into place. Everyone's jaw dropped. Someone whispered, how did we miss that?" The CEO looked at Ethan like he was seeing him for the first time. "How did you know?" Ethan shrugged, embarrassed. "I just saw it." The room exploded into action, the team running tests, updating systems, cheering as everything finally worked. Project Ether was alive. $1 billion problem solved, instantly. Ethan stepped back, trying to disappear, but the CEO stopped him. "You're not going anywhere," he said. "What's your name?" "Ethan." The CEO extended his hand. "Ethan, starting today, you're no longer the janitor." Tears stung Ethan's eyes. "Sir, I don't have a degree. I never finished college." "Good," the CEO said with a smile. "Because brilliance doesn't always come from diplomas. Sometimes it comes from people who've spent their whole lives being underestimated." The team clapped. Some even apologized for ignoring him all these months. But Ethan wasn't thinking about applause. He was thinking about the message he wished someone had told him years ago. That no job makes you small. That no title defines your worth. And that sometimes the world hides the brightest minds in the most unexpected places. Later that evening, as Ethan walked out of the building with a new ID badge in his hand, this time not faded but shining, he looked up at the sky and whispered to himself. Maybe I didn't lose the dream. Maybe it was waiting for me." And somewhere deep down, he knew. The janitor didn't just solve a $1 billion problem. He reminded everyone, including himself, that greatness has no uniform, no degree, and no limits.